What's up YouTube, G-Money here. So what I have is the CV axle. It's actually even open, and what it's occurring, it's spraying all over my caliper grease. So eventually it's definitely going to go out. I wish to replace it. What I did is I put a flathead all the way through and a secondary flathead up top going through the rotor, so that the disc, everything's in place and remains in place. Then a socket directly on the CV axle nut. I am going to put a big giant breaker bar over top of it. Sweet. Once you have that loose, then it's time to take apart the brake caliper. Take it off completely. Okay, so with the caliper off, the next step, since this is already loose, is to make sure to disconnect this control arm right here. I want this whole entire spindle free because it's going through the spindle. I might keep the tie rod head on because that's actually probably going to be the only place it's going to be. The reason for that, I have the other two joints that I'm replacing. If I want to free this spindle, I want to make sure this brake line is not attached to the spindle. It is attached to the spindle right there. Make sure you disconnect that if you are going to do the same thing of having the spindle free and moving basically. What you do with these cooler pins, you take them and you bend them so that they stick completely, so they're together. You make sure to just bring them together so they come out through the bolt that they go through. What I would do, keep wiggling it so that it would come out, but making sure that it's together as well. Okay, once you have it to where it's sticking out, you just grip it and rip it. You grip it, rip it, and that's how you pull the pin out. Afterwards, there's a nut to take off. This one's a 17 millimeter. Even though usually I use a joint separator, like this pickle fork, right in between the joint. Right now there's very little space, so let's see how my pickle fork reacts. As you have it here, you just drive this in. Eventually, it will completely move, see? Now to do the upper control arm, to get to the joint, what you need to do is 10 millimeters. We'll take off this little cup. When you take off this joint, then there should be a little pin holding it. Afterwards, a 17 millimeter is what takes this nut off. Once you got the nut loose, put this thing on there. get in on the other side. Use a pry bar, a big flat head, I guess. Pry bar. Once you take care of your brake system and the CV axle is completely loose, then you are going to take a flathead screwdriver and go on the other end of the CV axle at the transmission and pry it out. What I did is I pulled on it a few times, a little bit. I don't want the joint to come apart or anything, but again, I just pulled on it just a little bit. It should create a little bit of space come out of the gear, and then you could do the prying the rest of the way. Well, boom goes the dynamite.